Hello, and welcome to the Integrating Rising Consciousness podcast. This podcast will be conversations surrounding the harmonization of the world of the practical logic with the world of spirituality, the woo, or in other words, a recognition of aspects of life beyond the individual perspective. And I've noticed when we integrate both of these realities in our world, we tend to become more wholesome and compassionate human beings. This podcast will mostly feature the opinions and perspectives and experiences of others, along with sometimes just my own stream of consciousness. So who am I? I am Tula Faye. I work with conscious entrepreneurs who want to launch their programs or grow their business and their wellness by guiding them through their astrology. And as you'll see, I got to sit with Holly. She was so gorgeous, and it was so wonderful to spend time with her, and I completely got flustered in the beginning. Though, to be honest, I know that I'm only perfect 6 days out of the week. So without further ado, let's jump into the conversation with Holly.
Hi, my name is Tula Faye. I'm an astrologer and a teacher of esoterics and plant medicine. So today I'm doing a podcast that is called Integrating Rising Consciousness. And this inspiration for this podcast came from really seeing how throughout time, all of our ancestors and those that came before us really started to explore consciousness that was beyond them and how they used what was around them to integrate their health and their well-being with their surroundings and with their community. So today I am very excited to introduce to you Holly with Authentic Experience. She is a transformational coach, intuitive, and energy healer who uses her gifts and her knowledge to design intuitive design packages and coaching for emerging intuitive females. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you, Tula. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to be with me. So my first question for you would be, when did you really start transforming yourself? Because as a transformational coach, you have to go through your own transformation, right?
Yeah. So I was actually born, I say I was born a natural empath and intuitive. I remember seeing and feeling energies when I was very, very young. And I always had this, I'll say, like, external objective perspective to things and the people around me. I started noticing probably around the age of 5 and 6 that other people, my parents, weren't responding the same way to these energies and things that I would see and experience. So I started to shut down. Um, I always would find myself gravitating towards friendships and other people that started to like think and feel in similar ways to myself. So I was very fortunate enough to have the universe, God, or however you relate to that on like a faith or personal level, send me people that I needed to be surrounded with, not only to help me through my childhood, but also to help them expand. Probably when was it, my freshman year in high school, one of my closest friends and we wouldn't have to speak to each other. In fact, I wouldn't tell her anything. And
Oh,
sometimes I would take her on these mini trips, um, and have her stand with me in spaces that I knew physically felt differently. I could feel the energies start to shift and change, and I would recognize that it didn't feel like my own. It felt as if it was something different. Um, so we kind of started dabbling in that way and confirming with her without words through these experiences that we were sharing, which were so profound for me at the time because I was looking for that external validation, as we do so much, with ego. Um, when I hit my, let's say, early to mid 20s up until now, so fast forward quite some time, I really dove into kind of slowly coming out of the spiritual closet, so to speak.
Mm.
So I would start doing meditations and researching energies and different ways that I could start to unlock and re-access these gifts that I knew I had been given. And for so long, I was so afraid to be deemed, um, crazy, the
Right.
crazy person in the family. So I really hid parts of myself for quite some time. But as I started dabbling and diving in, the universe was, I would be sent different people, different signs, all throughout my life. And my gifts started really opening up, so much so that I started having meditations where I would actually astral project outside of myself, and I would be viewing the scene from different angles in the room and experiencing um, different presence and spirits that would sit next to me and sit by me and guide me. And that was probably the biggest crack open to really understanding things on a different energetic level than I had ever experienced before.
So that's amazing. It sounds that when you allowed yourself to be really unconventional, that's when things really started to like shift and open up for you.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, can you pinpoint like a time where you just allowed like I guess the conventional Holly to fall away, and then like then to allow like the unconventional Holly like in her full power to emerge?
I think it probably would have been the first time that I experienced that astral projection. And for me, I like to almost reference it as like co-consciousness. So it's the merging of your subconscious with your conscious mind and allowing ego to step away. Um, a lot of the visual information that I receive through like my mind's eye and also has shifted over time from like clairvoyance, so clear seeing, clear cognizance, like clear knowing. And I always forget the other clear, but clear feeling.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
there's intense.
yes, thank you. That has shifted how I used to process information has shifted over time since that astral projection. Um, but that biggest piece for me was um, I remember I had been asking my grandmother to come through,
Mhm.
and I recognized that at that time she was sitting next to me in this angelic form on the couch when I was staring down at my body. And I kept getting this information pushed into my head that I just knew this information was for somebody. And I took my headphones off, and I'll never forget thinking like, say something, don't say something, say something, don't say something. And I
Mm.
said, you know what, who cares? And I just blurted it out in the room I was in. And a friend, dropped her paintbrush and started talking to me. I would have had no idea how or who this was coming through. And that for me was okay, you need to start trusting this information, trusting these visualizations, trusting the words and the things that you're seeing, hearing, and feeling without judgment that society has placed on us to think that it's not true or in our experience.
Right. And that's so powerful. I know I can speak from my own experience working with you how, and I have had the privilege of really working with a lot of psychics and intuitives in my days. And so with you, what was so potent and powerful is even though when we did begin working together, you barely knew me or anything about me, and
Yeah.
yeah, and you were still like very detailed and straightforward and able to really tap into who I am and like what I was surrounded by with a lot of clarity. And that was such a powerful moment for me to like be seen by someone that is definitely very open and compassionate. and open-minded as well, because I am very unconventional. I try to like pass as conventional. So when did you start knowing that your gifts could really serve women?
Probably, I mean, really, with the passing of my biological mother in 2012, I had been searching and searching and searching for all of these answers for years upon years. And I was finally delivered them through a local psychic at a shop that I frequent, who, I now have many friends that actually read there as well. Um, but that to me, most of the women that work at this shop and all of the people that were surrounding me, I would notice I was constantly connected and surrounded by and pulling into my space um, women that were having similar experiences that I was having as a young child. And I started recognizing, oh my gosh, there's a reason that these people are being drawn to me. I would meet them through different facets. I would actually meet them through like different corporate jobs or retail positions in management roles where I had to lead and train them. And one of the biggest things that would come back through different feedback sources from like corporate managers was that, you know, Holly, you're not here to help these people with their personal lives. Sometimes that happens, but they need to leave their stuff at the door, and you just need to like, this is the way it is. This is how it has to be. And I would kind of shake my head, okay, sure. But I knew in my soul, in my heart, I'm like, no, I can't just deal with this person on a workspace level, because that's not the reality we're living in. Like, how am I supposed to lead these people with my heart and soul in this position if I'm not helping and training and coaching and developing them from their heart space as well? So that was a really key factor for me in recognizing that I'm surrounded by all of these women that were so powerful, and I would see that they had such strength and grace, but they couldn't see it yet. And I started training and developing in these management roles from that heart space and giving them the tools that they needed to succeed, even if it meant that they were going to leave my business, even if it meant they were going to leave the stores that I and the industries that I was working in at the time. Because if I can give them the tools that they need to succeed and leave me and level up in their lives, get that management position or get that higher paying job, then that means I've done well, because they can continue to create for themselves what they didn't realize was possible before. And that was the biggest shift for me in recognizing in my coaching, in my design, packaging, and in the way that I'm leading people on a larger scale, that I was actually being called to lead these women, to empower them in such a way that they can continue to empower themselves, even if that means I'm not working with them in, the next 5 hours after. You're only going to see me for 5 hours today, or 2 hours today, or your 8 hour shift. I want to give you what I can in that 5 or 8 hours so that you can take that with you and continue to empower yourself.
Yeah, wow. I really want to speak to that level of selflessness and that courage and definitely bravery. And I want to speak on how in astrology there has been a recent shift of the nodes. So there are two asteroids that circle around the moon, and they have shifted into this place where we really have to bring our heart into our government and into our corporate lives. So I think what's so powerful about being a leader and is being on the leading edge. And so for you to perceive this and to be tapped into like and leading this wave of I can be here and we can have a full vivid human experience, even though yes, we're here to do a job, but it's just more than getting XYZ done. It's like, how does XYZ get done when we are going through this human experience, and when we are, because I completely believe that everyone in some sense is open to all energies that are around them.
Yes.
Maybe everyone doesn't know the tools of like how to filter it, because everyone's a little bit different. Like we did talk about the, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. So there are different ways that we filter a consciousness that is beyond us, or energies that are beyond us. And when I say consciousness, I do also see that as subtle energy as well. So energies like within plants, are energies within our surroundings. I consider all of these aspects to be parts of consciousness.
I'm
And
just plugging in my phone before it. Okay. So you were speaking on, I might need to switch this a little. Hold on. Does that work? Can you still see me?
yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry, recap for a quick second. What were you saying? How we experience consciousness or co-consciousness and experience other energies around us through different avenues, right? Because we all receive information differently.
Precisely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I did want to touch on and ask you about is how would you define ego, and how does ego kind of get in our way?
Ego. So ego to me is, I guess I would say, it's the conditioning after birth that, I mean, I guess when we're born, right? The only two things that we fear as a small infant would be like fear of being dropped, and what was the other thing I just saw the other day? There was something else, but whatever. Like we only have these two, like, what's that?
Abandonment.
Right. Okay. So we have just these two direct fears, and that's it. Everything else is kind of just open to us because we're relying on this other person to care for us. Um, but ego, in and of itself, outside of that, at least in my experience, is the building up of a wall, or the building up of a branding of an identity, what society tells you that you must be or how you must act.
Right.
And in such a way that we are then conditioned, our ego becomes almost like this glass shard of ourselves that can at times benefit us when we need it to, but it can also be our biggest destroyer. So much so that the way that society has conditioned us, um, I guess more or less in like a patriarchal style, um, it can be our biggest defeater and our biggest defender. It can defeat us so much so that we are frozen with fear and we never really get to live out our true soul's purpose. It can defeat us so much that we ignore and deny ourselves these gifts, these experiences, these messages, this information on a higher dimensional and consciousness level, and never really reach our full potential. And over time, I think we've seen this happen in the way that society has shifted and changed. Because if you go back to um, ancient times, and like even in like the Mayans, and from an Egyptian standpoint, even so much, I mean, further back before the Greeks, right? But if we go back into these ancient civilizations, um, it actually was run by the matriarch. It was run by the mother, and it wasn't until um, I can't really pinpoint exactly where, but the deconstruction of that started to take place, and then insert like the pharaohs started to take over, and then the patriarch took over. And in that happening, that's where we get a larger, at least in my experience and in my research that I've felt called to do, we get a larger chunk of this masculine energy that starts to kind of flow up. And without the balance of the female and the male energies, we get a lot of this covering a lot of this fear and these constructs and these boxes that are put up around us. And it shuts down more of that feminine flow that we should be experiencing in yin and yang with these male and female energies. And I got off topic, but nonetheless.
No, absolutely. I definitely believe that because of ego, whether it's personal or societal or cultural, that's what led to this experience that you had where you had someone being like, you're not here to manage their emotions, like you're just here to make sure that they get the job done. And
Mhm.
without knowing or without giving consideration that we have our own flow and that we have our good days and then we have our bad days and we wax and we wane in our own emotion and abilities and even in our body and wellness these are all factors that come in when we try to do anything and
Yes.
also ego as well that you really perfectly described. But yes, I definitely agree that not only has ego followed us throughout our life, but it's also followed us through our culture and society. And so, because of this recent astrological transit that I talked about, then it's this time where we are really coming into balance within each of us, because each of us has a masculine and a feminine side to us.
Yes.
And we're so used to okay, we go to work, so we leave it at the door, right? And so in that moment, we are fracturing who we are by leaving something at the door or pretending, because the most common lie is I'm fine, because it's just okay, just be stoic, put on your mask and just get through the thing. Don't actually be authentic, because the way that I perceive it is maybe that being authentic and being vulnerable can be taken as a burden, which I think is an unhealthy aspect of the cultural perpetuated masculine sense.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Especially so much so, right? We've been taught at a young age, even men, right? You're a man, don't cry.
Right.
What? Or
Mhm.
you're not allowed to feel this way or that way. So just push it down, push it down, push it down. When instead, really, we need to be leaning into those feelings and accessing information like, why do I feel this way? Is this mine? Is this somebody else's? Is this source information, spirit coming through? Like, why am I experiencing this? And why does it make me feel uncomfortable or comfortable? Does it feel good or bad? So, differentiating those types of feelings and our emotions and how we associate them with the energies we're surrounding ourselves with and interacting with, and how that spreads throughout our body, even on a cellular level. Um, yeah, it can be very damaging and very empowering, both one and of the same, right? Depending on the emotion that you're feeling. And it is so much so to be vulnerable in those states when we're experiencing such, I guess, highly charged emotion, whether it's happy or sad, to be vulnerable and open up to people around us when we've been taught that we need to be shut down and we need to push through or act a certain way, act right. um, it doesn't teach us that really the full truth of what we can be experiencing or what we should be experiencing, and how we can learn, you know healthy coping mechanisms, not only on a physical 3D level, but how can we learn healthy coping mechanisms and healthy, I guess, what's the word, spiritual development mechanisms. Like, how can we continue to take this now, unbox it and uncover it, and expand into, from this 3D into higher dimensions of understanding. And once you start to deconstruct that in a physical 3D space, is so beautiful when we share our stories and when we show up with other women and other like-minded individuals, and we share these stories and these experiences that we're having, to recognize, oh, you're having this experience too. I'm not crazy. Oh, you're having this experience too. You felt this too, or you felt that way too, or you shared that experience in your meditation, in working with crystals and working with energy, and how you receive information is different, but we saw or experienced the same thing or a similar thing. Um, just like we make friendships and relationships, it's the same type of flow that can start to happen, and we can start to expand and level up our consciousness back to where it should be, um, and empowering one another together to really deconstruct and then rebuild society in such a way, um, it could be something quite beautiful and will be quite beautiful as long as we allow these things to happen and take shape as they may.
Yes, it will be very beautiful. And with the transits that are happening, it's that a lot of people are coming online for lack of a better term, to this awakening of experiencing like how um, we integrate that rising experience, of being in higher levels of consciousness or perceiving higher levels of consciousness. And um, I definitely see the way, like the old paradigm way of talking about the 3D experience as being flat. and I,
Yes.
yeah. And so I think that's why the rise in consciousness, or, different dimensions, is like coming in, being like, there's so much more to this 3D reality. And
Hmm.
so, we talked about strength in men, and I do want to say from my own experience, and hopefully another woman has experiences too, but the notion of strength, the way that I was raised as a woman was that like strong women like don't cry, big girls don't cry. And strong women like have it together and they're like independent and they don't like need no man, right? So um, um, there's been that. I remember in high school when I was applying for college, I asked a friend, I was like, what do you think, like how would you describe me? I asked my best friend, like, how would you describe me? And she was like, vulnerable. And when she said that, I was like broken in that moment. I was like, me, like vulnerable? And I was ashamed. And it wasn't, I didn't even understand. I couldn't even wrap my head around like why I was so ashamed that like my best friend saw me as like vulnerable. And I think that maybe it's because I didn't think that vulnerability was a sign of strength. And it took me, it's been like 10 years since I asked that question to my friend in high school. And so it's taken me probably that long to understand that vulnerability can be very much a strength, especially to be authentic in that moment. So,
Yes. Ooh, I was getting chills as you were telling that. Yes. That's, have you asked your, I'd be interested to see, have you asked your friend now that same question, like over 10 years later?
I ought to, really ought to.
Yeah. Well, she's going to tell you now when she sees this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my question for you would be, what advice do you have for emerging female intuitives?
I think my biggest piece would be know your people. And if you don't know your people, find them. Call them to you, they will find you. Share your stories and share your experiences, even in your most terrifying moments, even if you think you are just off the wall insane, because somebody out there probably is waiting for you, is waiting and praying for you to share your story and share your experience so that they can come out of their whole and feel filled with that light. I think the more that we share these stories and these experiences, the more we'll be able to connect with other people that are having these same experiences or similar experiences, and to link up and build those relationships. Um, if you're struggling, reach out for help. If you're feeling like a lunatic, reach out for help. If you're thinking something doesn't quite feel right, or you're having a difficult time shifting into that next level, like you're like, I know I want to be here, but I just can't get there. I don't know what else to do. I tried everything. I read everything. It's not working. It's not working. Reach out and ask for help. Find a coach. Invest time, money, and energy into yourself first.
Mm.
And as that flow starts to come, you will start to see the people that you need surrounding you. I guess that would be my biggest piece. And trust your instincts, trust your gut. You know, if it, that little nudging feeling in the middle pit of your stomach in our chakra system, that's there for a reason. You're
Mm.
feeling these things for a reason. It's not just because you think you're hungry and you need to eat a snack.
Right.
So, you
Right.
know, trust your gut and reach out for that help and assistance if you do need help breaking through to that next level.
Yeah, I've totally experienced in myself and then also in female friends that I have how easy it is to almost neglect our intuition because intuition speaks so softly in the beginning.
Yes.
It's usually like it's usually spoken before our logical mind kind of gets into play and then like starts to have fear around it or control around the situation. And especially for the friends of mine that do live or work in very conventional settings, you know, the intuition is just pushed down. So um, if a woman was there, like has an inkling that like she is intuitive and that she is very receptive to her reality and that she's becoming more sensitive to her emotions and her surroundings, what would you say to her?
So, working in retail and in the finance industry for the past 10 years previous to this, the
Mhm.
biggest thing that I would tell people is to look into crystals and their energy more from a protection source. And then also to start a self care routine every single morning on your way to work. Something that I did when I was having a really, really difficult time in my corporate career. I was feeling so drained and overwhelmed, and I had all, you know, all of this energy just buzzing around me. I was working with the public and finance and dealing with finances and people that, you know, needed money. They were, whether or not they were living in a lack mindset. So like being around that was so draining. And something that I started doing, I would wear very specific crystals and stones. If you're more like headspace, as I say, or like airy, like myself, as I associate with being a Gemini, the sign of the twins, and that's just how my energy is. Like smoky quartz and black tourmaline are my two best friends. I would put them in my blazer pockets. If these are too heavy for you, some people do like a little bit lighter stones. Even clear quartz is good for like clearing out negative energy as a protection. Um, or even just like a darker stone from outside. So if you're like, I don't have money for crystals, just go pick up a stone from outside
Yeah.
and put it in your pocket. Or some dirt. Like I know that's super what? Yes, not like put a leaf in your pocket.
Yeah.
Physical earth. And if you are in a space where you can wear a piece of jewelry, I always would wear and switch out different stones in my necklace. And then every single day on the way to work, I would do, you know, 10, 15 minutes in the car. I would actually do EFT tapping, emotional freedom tapping on different centers of my body on the way to work. And I would do a few deep cleansing breaths. That got me through my last few months of my corporate job before I chose to leave in January of this year. So, crystals, grounding your energy, deep breath work, and EFT tapping on certain energy points in your body. And if anyone needs more information on this, feel free to reach out to me. You can also do a quick Google search on EFT tapping. It'll give you a really good chart for it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right now, with the way that astrology is situated, everyone is feeling the majority. I don't want to do a blanket term, but the majority of people are really feeling that. Um, things are very serious and like there's a no way out type of feeling. And so when these types of experiences are happening, when we don't know what's next and we don't really know a way out, it is a really good time to ground. And a way to ground is by, again, like using earth, like you were talking about, you know, crystals are part of the earth, and that, you know, it can be comforting to have like the dark stone, you know, even if you don't have the money to get the tourmaline that balances out negativity, or smoky quartz, which really helps us come forward and who we are and our confidence, and is a good like with helping us making decisions. And so
Yes.
but even like a darker stone, when I was working with a shaman, he said that I could just take a stone and put it on my stomach, and that's like grounding. He's like, there's your grounding. Because I was like, how do I go put like my feet on the ground, you know, like when it's snow and ice outside? Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That would work for someone in LA, but at that time I was living in, you know, in the Northeast, so in New York. So putting my bare feet on the ground, I'm like, are you crazy? He's like, and he was like, well, just put a stone in your stomach and then you're grounded. I'm like, okay, dude, you know. And it was like a darker stone. Um, yeah, so they can reach out to you and ask you questions, but also, what's up next for you?
So right now, I am actually currently continuing development on my Soul X launch. It is launched and you can book out. I'm taking on roughly 5 to 8 women, emerging female intuitives, and to help them to better understand the inner workings of their soul, and to help them actually start to develop their intuitive gifts and uncover these fears and help in removal of those. So Soul X is a group coaching, private group, small group coaching program that I am launching, and that people can feel free to reach out and sign up for. It's going to be roughly a 5 to 7 week program. And then I also offer intuitive design packages, so like branding and graphic design assistance as well. I'm still taking image submissions if anyone's interested. I am working on a tarot deck, a collective tarot deck. I just finished my Sacred Light Oracle deck, and that is on launch on my website as well. But I'm still taking image submissions for, I mean, men and women alike. It is more geared towards, you know, like the female side, but men and women alike. So if you want some free art, you get all of your free images that are created for the deck, you will get back in digital form. And then also you will be featured on the deck as one of the major or court card, major arcana or the court cards as well.
That's so cool.
Thanks. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, and you're really providing a great service for those that are already like, you know, awakening to their intuitiveness, and those that are becoming aware. So, anything else that you would like to say or share?
Not that I can think of right now. No, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm looking forward to everything else that I know we'll be doing together in the future. So,
Yeah, yeah. Thank
yeah.
you so much for your time, and thank you all for listening. So, bye for now.
Thank you so much for watching and listening to us. And you can find Holly at her website, the number 888 axe.com, and you can find her on Facebook as well.